Okay, welcome to Redemption Radio. This is week 1 of season 2. I'm Human Bones, and I've got Nexus, and I've got Ninja Dog here. Sorry, I almost didn't add Ninja Dog. How's it going, guys?
It's going good,
Pretty
man.
good. Pretty good.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining. I thought it was a pretty fun week. I did this season, at least, or this week, actually managed to watch the games. I did not do that last year, so um, that's always helpful when you're trying to give commentary. So, starting off with a brand new map, as we mentioned during the draft. Okay, well, during the draft, that was about what, 2 weeks ago. So teams have
Yep.
had a week and a half, 2 weeks to practice to get to know each other, and figure out what works. So opening up on this brand new map, Cold Blooded, we had 3 games that happened this weekend. So gosh, I can't even remember the names of the teams. I just know uh, their tags. So the first game was WDL versus UAC. So that was actually your game, Ninja Dog. So I'd love to hear your commentary on it. I'll just give a little bit here, because I thought it was a really close game in round 1. I thought you guys were kind of feeling each other out and trading flags back and forth. And then right near the end, like the last 2 minutes of it, I felt like your team kind of cracked, broke it open. And interestingly, WDL did not play Denzoa. So I thought, okay, round 2 they'll play him because of just how the round ended. But I also get that sometimes like you can lose in a match and then feel like, uh, okay, we played pretty well. Like let's just keep the same lineup and see if we can keep the momentum. But I felt like the momentum shifted towards your team at the end of round 1. So and it was pretty evident by the fact that I think you guys scored like 3 or 4 flags pretty quickly in your round 2. So I guess from your perspective, how did that game go? Did you enjoy playing the map? Yeah.
Yeah, no. So we definitely enjoyed playing the map. I kind of had the same thoughts. The first game, I think it was 2-2 for the first 7 minutes.
Yeah.
We kind of got some early momentum, and then we were up by a flag, and then Sparrow kind of, I think he was hiding in the base and had a really good rocket jump out that kind of caught Marine Guy and myself off guard. After that, the last few minutes, though, we were able to just kind of get in a nice rhythm, and we were able to close the game out. I was also a little surprised that they played Killer. I know they were practicing with him a lot, but I really thought that they were gonna play Denzo. I thought it was more of just he was kind of helping them practice to get in some time. Uh, the second game, yeah, I think we were just really locked in, and also I think I'm not sure exactly what happened from their perspective. I think maybe they went down a flag or two really quickly. Sparrow tried to overcompensate a bit by they were all just kind of playing 3-0 at that point, and I was helping Marine Guy play D. Wiz kept running, and we were able to just get a lot of flags out. So yeah, I think they played well, but they just kind of, I'm not sure exactly what happened that second game, because the first game was definitely a lot closer. I think Wiz and Marine Guy also played really well. Especially, I have to give a lot of props to Marine Guy, because I thought he did great, especially coming from the free agency. We practiced with him a lot over the last week and a half or so, and he did really really well for us. So yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I thought he played really well too. And yeah, to your point, also I think it's really hard sometimes in games to know when you should sub a player out. Like I don't know that there's not a real answer to that, but I don't know. I find it really, and not to like belabor the point or anything, but you know, when you have someone like Denzoa, yeah, I think he said in the chat like he didn't get a chance to warm up or anything. Um, that's like saying I'm not going to play like Devastation or something because he didn't warm up. Like I just think like give him a shot. But yeah, Nexus, what were your thoughts?
This was the only game I didn't get to see this week. I know going into practices, both teams were looking really good. I got to work with Ninja Dog, Wiz, and Marine Guy a lot. UAC. They were doing really, really well in practice. They're beating some pretty huge lineups that really, definitely gave them some confidence, I'm sure, going into the game. Sparrow's team was also doing some decent ones in practice. I think their practices were a little bit more shaky, perhaps. I think that showed in the final matchup. Uh, it was a hard one. I feel like maybe this particular map wasn't the best for Sparrow's team. Like they seem to struggle to get flags out every now and then. Sparrow seemed pretty good at it, but also Sparrow was pretty locked in on D, so it had a hard balance to sort of strike on that one. Didn't get to see this one, unfortunately, so I won't comment too much further because I didn't really know exactly the fine details, but
Well,
it seemed
let's
like a
talk.
pretty solid game.
Let's talk about the back spawn because that seemed to be a
Yeah.
point of
Mhm.
contention also. Something I noticed was like, I mean, look, every map has a spawn like in the back or whatever in a spot that's not, advantageous for a defender. So I didn't really find that the spawn itself was a problem, but there was one time, and I think I was watching Disparol where he spawned and like went over his flag to the back SSG to pick up the SSG, and in that span of time, someone on your team had grabbed the flag and ran out. So basically, it just put him behind the flag runner. Um, so I think like that's something that happens too with new maps is you can practice it all week, but like it's not like you're going in and you're playing, ZD CTF map 4 or something where you've got a decade's worth or more of knowledge of how people play. If you go and grab a weapon or whatever, if you give someone the opportunity to get in front of you as a defender, that's always like you're basically asking for trouble in that situation. So I felt like yeah, I just felt like that happened a lot on that map and it wasn't necessarily the back spawn.
Yeah, no, that's true. I think the map itself is. I think it's really cool to have the new map as the starting map because it really shows each team's commitment to learning something quick or just commitment to the league right off the bat because they have that that week or that 2 weeks to completely learn something from scratch, which is really cool. You could always argue changes for pretty much any map. Like you said, we don't have 20 years of experience just running that one map like everyone else does on most other maps, and so certain things get found out within the last couple of days. Like I definitely saw a lot of complaints about that back spawn, and sometimes it did feel like, oh my god, I got the back spawn by flag. There's flaws to every map, and I think spawns like that often come down to like how the mid has to pick up that slack if the defender gets the back spawn. It was other stuff like a lot of people were thinking sort of the teleporter was a little bit weak, which you could defend pretty well. Like the teleporter didn't take you very far out main. Like you still had to run a long way if you did take the teleporter. So it's just like any other map. You can make a bunch of changes, and each change you could make to it is very much up to personal interpretation as to whether or not it's good. Overall, though, I thought the map was really fantastic, and I can't talk shit about it because Sharp's on my team, so I got a gun to the back of my back. So I can't talk shit about it. But no, I thought on the whole it was really good. You could definitely make a couple changes here or there, but it's the same with any other map, really.
Yeah, I was kind of that's kind of my impression as well. I really liked the map. It definitely grew on us after practicing the map so much over the last couple weeks. The backspawn, it definitely is. It can be tough for sure. There were definitely a lot of times where, you know, if they ran out and you did get that backspawn and they're already running out main, then you basically couldn't catch up. So we really tried to communicate that to have either the other two people, if they were in a position to try to return the flag, they could. But yeah, I like the map a lot. I think it's a really good complement to the other maps coming up this season. It's definitely really grindy, but at the same time, there's still some finesse that you can get from it where there's the rocket jump available, the window, the gate. Really, I just like the fact that it requires a lot of team, really team communication and work because most of the time it's almost impossible to score on that map if you don't have the entire team helping you. And we noticed that even if I was playing mid and I was pushed up trying to help the runner, a lot of times it required the D to also be pushed up to get flags out. So it was definitely a really good starter map, and it really. And I'm glad we had 2 weeks to practice it. It really kind of got our team at least on the same page, and we were able to really synergize while playing it. So I did appreciate that.
Yeah, and talk about Marine, because I mean, look, you were drafted for $26, which meant, that there wasn't much leftover cash there, so you picked up Chain, and then obviously trading Ed out at the after the draft for Marine, and then the guy starts in the game. So talk about his impact on it.
Yeah, he had a huge impact, really. So yeah, like you said, we had Chain and Ed. Chain, unfortunately, he had a crazy schedule the last couple weeks, so we did get to practice with him, but not as much as we wanted to. We played a couple games early on, right after the draft with Ed, and it went okay. But we I had practiced a few times with other teams, and Marine guy was playing. Wiz and I were kind of talking a lot because we saw that he had a lot of potential, really, and he seemed to be really doing well. So we wanted to give him a shot, and we traded him in. And really, just from the beginning, since he joined our team, he's been giving 110% this whole season so far. It's been great. He's really, really been taking any kind of advice, criticism that we're telling him. He's trying his best during practice and in the games, and it really shows. He said that especially our first game after the first round, that his hands were shaking, which I can understand that, because like the first game I ever played 5 years ago, I guess, like in an actual league, I was really nervous too, and that was really, I think that's the first competitive game that he's played in. So I completely understand where he's coming from. But yeah, no, he's been doing great. He really, I think, has filled in that kind of void that we were missing on our team, and we're playing really, really well with him. So yeah, I'm definitely proud of him. He's doing great, and I think he's going to keep trying as hard as he can all season. So that's really all you can ask for.
Yeah, you guys are doing great with him. I was surprised he was left in the free agents, to be honest, from the start. And then when you guys picked him up, it was just definitely the right move. He's done really, really well. And it's kind of the same story with a lot of fourths. I'm sure we'll get into it later, but even on my team, I was initially gonna play Dranzer, and it turns out Dranzer doesn't really want to show up to practices and that. So, fuck it, I'm gonna play Skull Rush absolutely. And it turned out to be the best thing that could happen to me, because Skull Rush completely proves me wrong, and plays his heart out, and we've got a better lineup because of it. But yeah, Marine guy on your team as well, sort of the same story, not necessarily what you're going for just from the beginning of the season, but it turns out it works out really, really well, and you guys have a top lineup from it.
I have to say, nobody's better at dodging practice than Dranzer.
Oh
I
yeah.
have lots of experience with that. Just completely fucking ignores you. But that's okay. We like Dranzer. Yeah, so that's cool. I think especially because I feel like almost every day I see on Facebook that Chain is running a salsa dancing class or something. So you'll have the
Yep.
opportunity to play with Marine quite a bit, I'm sure. So congratulations on your week 1 victory. Thought it was a really good game. Jumping into the second game, which was your game, Nexus. I also felt like it started off like this is without the scoring. I should say this was very similar to the first game, where super close, right? Like getting a flag out was really, really difficult, and to have I thought the lineup too, like playing aliens, not a mistake at all. But you could see that they were lacking offense in that first game. You guys did a really good job. I mean, you basically turned into the fucking Terminator, 114 frags Nexus. So like nobody was getting anything out. And then in round 2, they put AVC in, and it it gave them a lot more offense. They actually went up 2 flags to 0 pretty early on, and then you guys tied it back, and it was back and forth after that. But I think what they gave up or what they gained on offense, they kind of gave up on defense as well because I mean, you kind of came back to earth a little bit in terms of the fragging, but then you went and scored like 4 flags. So you kind of took over. I feel like you took over both rounds, and that's not to discredit the rest of your team or anything, but you had a really, really good game. So yeah, tell us about it.
Yeah, I was really nervous going into this one. Seeing like Poto's one of, if not the best players around right now with his respective position is like running and mid. It's I was really nervous going into this one, kind of seeing how his synergy with AVC would go. And I was actually, like you said, I was very surprised when they didn't run AVC right from the start. I'm not sure what the thought process was behind that. I'm sure it was very valid. Like they probably practiced Aliens and Ghost with Poto, and it was probably working out really well. Maybe AVC didn't get to practice as much. I'm not sure, but I sort of felt that in the 2 rounds. Like round 1, I was really nervous going into it. We were able to just sort of pull flags out and not worry too much about leaking. And then going into round 2, I felt the pressure from AVC a lot more. Having both AVC and Poto in your base at the same time, just awful feeling. Like that's really, really terrible. Skullrush did really, really good supporting me playing mid. So I really relied on him quite heavily. Had great call outs with each other, and I sort of just left Sharp to try and pull flags out. I got 4 caps that game, but only 2 of them were really me. The other 2 were just like gifted to me at the main of our own base, and I carried it to the flag stand. The other 2, we were just, because our communication was where we needed it to be, I was able to rotate and run into the base when Skull Rush was in ours. So yeah, it was a pulling out the screenshots.
It took me about
Nice.
5 minutes to figure
That's
out
a good
how
one.
to do that.
That's
But,
a good one.
That is.
But yeah, I had a lot of fun in that round, and I'm looking forward to the next one.
All right, now I got to figure out how to remove it. Yeah, did you happen to catch that game, Ninja Dog?
Yeah, yeah. So I thought you guys did great. Also, I guess going back to what you said about Dranzer, honestly, I'm glad. I think it was definitely the right move. Even if he showed up, I guess playing Skull Rush and Sharp, because
Yep.
you guys, I felt like you guys were working really, really well together. Practice against your team several times leading up to that game, and Sharp and Skull Rush just seemed to be working really, really well together. And then you're kind of just in the back, holding everything down defensively. So I thought you guys played great. I definitely thought going into that game that you guys were going to win. I was also a little confused on why they didn't play AVC. Again, I'm sure there was some reason for it. I mean, I definitely think the second game was a lot closer for sure once they put in AVC. We had practiced against them a lot also, and that seemed to be the lineup they were running for the most part was Ghost Killer, AVC, and Poto. And yeah, Poto and AVC is definitely a very scary offensive combo for sure. So I thought you guys still did great. You were doing really well Nexus, and like to your point, Skull Rush, I thought he was playing mid really, really well also. Um, honestly, I thought before that he was going to be running and Sharp is going to be playing mid, but I think again the way you guys did it was definitely the right move. Skull Rush surprised me actually with how well he played mid, and Sharp was able to just kind of keep sneaking in, pulling flags. So overall, I thought you guys did great. You definitely deserve the win. Poto's team really did good, and they almost came back at the end. So it made for a good game. But yeah, overall, I was really impressed by how your team played.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. So congratulations. And looking at our third game, so this one, interesting. All 3 games went only 2 rounds each, and there were opportunities for, I think, 3-round games definitely, but just didn't work out like that. So I don't think that there were any that were straight straight up like you've lost 2-0 and no redeeming qualities at all. This one, so this was WW and what is that, LKD. So yeah, sorry, there's, if you can hear that, there's stuff happening outside. Yeah, I thought this was like kind of the OG versus the newer players, and I think Jwar and Legion have played together quite a bit, so there's some chemistry there. And then obviously Amar, really really good as well. But I felt like LKD did a really good job. Actually, they had a couple opportunities to like train the flags together, and I know they did that a lot. And so they had some really good teamwork, but they were just overpowered by the other team and their ability to grab the flags. And like I noticed that whenever LKD would grab the flag, pretty much their flag was almost always gone from the stand. So they did a really good job of creating that sort of havoc. Round one was really close, actually, right at the last second, or maybe the last like 10 seconds. LKD had an opportunity to score and they got killed. Like I think it was Jay Warrior got killed pretty close to the base there. So kind of disappointing, right? But they didn't play bad, at all. And going into round two, you figure that's going to continue, and I think it just kind of unraveled a little bit for them. I don't feel like typically when you see a score 4-1, I feel like the other team, the team that's only scored one, has played a lot worse. But I really don't think they played badly. I think they just, it was kind of the luck of the draw. Like they had a ton of opportunities to. I think there was one like all three of them picked up the flag like twice during a flag run, and they still weren't able to score it. So they just had a lot of bad luck situations. But it was a really good game, and you got to give credit to the other team, WW, for playing really well.
Yeah, definitely. This was the most recent game. This one just happened a couple hours ago. It was really, really good to watch, actually. Both teams, it was super close the whole time. Like you said, in a 4-1 scoreline, you think it's not that close, but actually it was.
Yeah.
LKD had a couple of moments where it's like, oh, hey, if one little thing changed, like one little happenstance was different, it could have ended completely differently. And I think both these teams were kind of slept on. They had some really, really good plays going on. I practiced against both of them often. Like Jwar and Legion were running really well together. Jwar kept on running to the back of the base, and then Legion would completely destroy you at main, and Jwar would just come running out. Like they had some really good synergy going on. Amar was an absolute bot on D and just getting, what did you get, like 120 frags or something? Just insane scoreline. But I don't know what it was. They couldn't quite get the caps they needed to get, and WW was just really good. ACC and Tiger, it's like sort of another offensive combo, a little bit like Poto and ABC, where it's really, really frustrating and quite tiring as a defender to constantly come up against that. And then they also had, holding everything together, Saltmine, who, for someone who's really, really busy at this time of the year and can't practice during the week, just played out of his mind. Like he got over 100 frags, leaked barely anything the entire game. Like really, really solid from Saltmine. I gave him my MVP pick just because I know sort of the situation he's in and how little he can practice and how amazing he played this week. I thought that was really impressive from him. And Tiger, is just throwing himself at Amar over and over again. That's why Amar was able to get the frags he did, but it worked. It worked. Tiger was still pulling flags out, so no matter the method, you can't fault him. He was getting things out, and ACC was just everywhere he needed to be on mid. So really good showing from WW. I think LKD was also really, really good. They were just like, they're an inch away from the finish line. There was just something slightly missing. Like I said, every single cap which they lost, or every single cap that they almost had, was just like a really small mistake away from being fixed. But I think just maybe a little more practice or a little bit of change of play. I know they were also missing Warrior, which could open some opportunities for him. Like maybe have Warrior on D, and that would push Amar to mid. That could open up some avenues of competition for them. I don't know, but they played very well from both teams, and and it was really good to watch.
Yeah, I thought it was a really good game. Like you guys said, I thought it was really, really close. It felt close the whole game, even if the score, the second game, maybe it was 4-1. It felt close all the way up until the end. I think Amar got like a rampage just trying to get the flag out, and it almost worked. So there were a lot of times when LKD trained the flag really well, where you had everyone on their team kind of running it back, and I think that's how they scored most of the time. So yeah, I think Amar did really, really well. J Warrior and Legion, I mean, they were really good every time I practiced against them. So I expected it to be a close game, and it was. WW was also playing really well, though. Saltmine, I think he did great on D. He really locked it down. He was annoying to play against for sure when I was practicing against them. Tiger's running in the entire time. ACC and Tiger were working really well together, though, so it was definitely hard to defend against them. So I thought it made for a really good game. I will definitely be interested to see if they will be using Warrior in the future or what their lineup's going to look like from LKD side. I mean, even though they lost in 2 rounds, I think it definitely could have gone to 3 or maybe even their way if things went just a little bit differently, because the games were definitely a lot closer than it looked, in my opinion. But I have to say it was also a great showing from WW. ACC was playing really, really good mid. He was helping Saltmine when he needed to, but he was also pushing up a lot. Tiger was just constantly applying pressure. So as soon as he died, he's right back in the base. And then Saltmine is, yeah, he's hard to run on that map. He did really well. So I think they did. I think they did great. But I think LKD should definitely take some positives from that game too, because just because they lost this week doesn't mean they're out for sure. I think they're still a really strong team, and they were doing really good in practice. So I'll be curious to see what they can pull off in the coming weeks.
Yeah, and I noticed, having done so many of these and like talking about these games, like I think it's also easier, maybe not easier, but you tend to talk more about the team that lost than the team that won, and that's just because there's always room for improvement, and so I think that doesn't take away at all what WW did, because that was pretty, I would say, pretty dominant from them. I think you guys mentioned Tiger and ACC, and did a really good job. I think what I noticed was they were sort of they were distracting the defender a lot. One would sort of go one way, and one would go the other, and intentional or not, right? They just put pressure on the defender and made it confusing. So they did a really good job, and give it up to Saltmine. That guy is the next aimbot if he's not already. So yeah, he's really, really good. So yeah, really happy for them, and no team this week, should walk away and go, think that they suck. They were all really close games. So, and yeah, and moving into week 2, which is kind of a completely different map. I've always liked Towering Gardens. Again, it's one of those maps you can't really. I don't think you can really solo run it. Like, maybe if you are, you're lucky, right? But it's going to require a lot of communication and a lot of teamwork to, figure out how to get the flag out of each base. And it was interesting because I think initially I hated that map. It was just like super wide. It's very different, right? It's very different from all the maps that we've played in the past. And so it was pretty wide open, and it's just hard to wrap your head around it. But once you sort of understand how the map flows, the mid, I would say, is not really that important. I mean, I think when you're playing mid on that map, you either have to stay back in your base or push up into the other. Sitting in the actual middle of the map is not going to get you, very much. I don't know. How does this map fit in, with last week's map, Nexus?
Yeah, well, I think you're just right. Like, it's a completely different style of map. I think we're going to see a really big shift in play styles. I'm really interested for this one. I really want to get practicing on this one right away, because it is. in my head, it's a more difficult map. Like I think you can play pretty safe on a map like week 1 and get away with it. Week 2, map 18, like it's definitely harder to play D on. Like you're saying, it can be also very hard for the O. Like I think you can solo run this map, but it requires a lot more finesse. Like you have to be good at things like the lift jump is really important on this map. On the back platform, you can also do really nasty things that perhaps aren't quite as accessible. Like the rocket jump on this map, you can do a little rocket jump off the wall and take like 15 damage and be flying out that main window at 100
Oh,
miles an
that's
hour.
true. I remember
Like
that.
there's a lot of finesse going on with this map, which definitely was present in the week 1 map, but because week 1 map 71 was so fraggy, it sort of made that a little bit of a null fact. Like it was a lot harder to pull off the nasty rocket jumps in week 1, whereas week 2 you're going to see a little bit more of that, I feel like. And it's also just a complete shift in terms of positioning. Like you said, mid is pretty hard on this one. You sort of have to walk that fine balance between staying in your own base and just completely running and pushing. Teams are going to have to find a balance there. I find, like I said with myself, it's going to be pretty hard playing D there. There's a lot more sort of blind spots within the map. You can easily have a runner sort of run to the back of your base as you're cleaning up mid, and they have a lot of angles where they can completely hide from you without showing up at all. So it's definitely a hard map, and I'm very interested to see how not just my team but all the other teams sort of adapt to this. And I think this is going to be a really important one to practice. I think whoever doesn't practice this map is going to really struggle.
Yeah, no, I think like as a defender on this map, I really rely on the mid to tell me, if they see someone coming in. Doesn't matter which direction. Like, I mean, I there are certain maps where I would say if I was defending, I would say to the mid like, I don't really care where you are. I want you to run out of the base in this direction every single time. Like, because that way I can focus on what I need to focus on and they can tell me if someone's coming in the other side. So I feel like this map is one of those maps where you really are going to need, someone to make sure that they're telling you, if they see somebody coming in.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely true.
absolutely. I agree with Nexus on a lot of what he said. I think teams are gonna play this a lot differently. Whereas, like the main thing that comes to my mind is again on map we just played, Cold Blooded. You have a lot of times when to get flags out, even the defender is pushing up a lot of times all the way up to their base. I think on this map, you almost can't do that. The D basically just has to sit either up top or it's very difficult to maybe sometimes you can push out to mid if you're able to clear it up, but most of the time it's better to just play it safe because there's really like two main ways in. You can even go in through the window also. And then it's really easy for people to sneak past. If they do sneak past you, there's a lot of health in the base. There's that green armor. So you just really have to be careful on that. Mid's also difficult because, yeah, I agree. You almost have to commit 2-0 at times, which can work because, especially if you can have the mid and the O push the same way. You can try splitting it up. There's a lot of different approaches to it, but I think the mid just sitting at mid probably isn't going to be the most effective way to play this map. So I think teams are going to play it a lot differently. And yeah, I think we'll definitely have to practice to make sure that we get everything figured out before the actual game. So I'm really looking forward to it. I think it's a nice follow up to the map that we just played because it can be grindy. There's also still the finesse with the lift jump and the rocket jump and just brute forcing your way through. So again, in some ways it's similar, but really I think teams are going to play it a lot differently how they played week 1 for sure.
I think this is going to be a big team play sort of map. Like this is really going to show the true colors of each team and how they are able to adapt and what sort of suits them.
Yeah. And jumping into the first game, if we want to do, some predictions. I mean, this is the only game that doesn't involve you guys, so you can talk a little bit more about it. But WDL versus STB, on the teamwork side of things, both of these teams have players that have played together in a number of leagues on a number of teams. So the chemistry is there. And I think for starting with WDL, I think for them, obviously that synergy between Dragon and Disparal is going to be important, but it's going to come down to the third player. I mean, will Denzo get an opportunity to play? I think he should, but it's going to depend also on how well they practice. And they're going up against a really good, like, they're going up against AVC and Poto, who can do things on offense that very few other players can do. They're really really good at creating pressure and really really good at grabbing the flag and getting out, and kind of like getting out on a rampage, and not just like AVC can get out super fast, but it's not like he can't frag you as well. Like he's got the ability to do both, and Poto is just he can mow you down as well. So I think WDL may have their hands full. I know that all three of those players, Dragon, Disparal, and Denzoa, are all really good defenders. I'm not as familiar with Killer in terms of defending, but I think as capable as they are, this is one of those maps where you can't just like for me, right? I don't use mouse look, so I always relied on trying to be as accurate as possible with killing people. This is one of those maps where that gets harder because you're not in a stationary position. So I think they're gonna have their hands full with STB, and they're gonna need to communicate. So I don't know. I'm just gonna go out on a ledge and say I'm gonna give STB the advantage, and I'll say they'll win 2-1.
Yeah, I mean, building off of that, it's definitely gonna be an interesting game. I'd probably side with you in terms of that. I almost might say 2-1, 2-0. I would say STB. I'd like WDL to prove me wrong. I really hope they get lots of practice in with this one, sort of work out the composition a little bit. I think you're right. I think it'd be smart to play Denzoa and give him a better shot. It's like I said previously, it's going to be a really hard map. The teams are going to have to adjust a lot. I think this map is going to be really good for runners, and STB has some of the best runners in the game on their team, like Poto AVC. Running into your base on Towering Gardens is, I think, going to be even worse than it was in 71. Both those players really kind of have that finesse aspect and the fragging aspect down. So no matter what the situation is, they can brute force their way in or they can sneak in. They have both of those options at their disposal. It'd be interesting to see what the composition STB runs with. If I were them, I'd probably consider running Ghost Killer, Poto, AVC. I think they would probably do a little bit better that way. We'll see how Ghost Killer plays on map 18. See how he holds up on D. I'm sure he'll do great. So personally, I would agree with you and say STB on this one.
I think I would also give the edge to STB. WDL though, it's going to be curious. I'm curious to see what they do. I think they're definitely going to consider playing Denzoa this week. I'm also not sure if they're going to mix up positions at all. So in the game they just played, I'm pretty sure Sparrow was playing D, which he's great at D. But given that they've got, if they play Denzoa Dragon, I think those two players together are very strong defensively. So I'm curious if they're going to have Disparal running on this map, because I think he could do well, especially pulling off some sneaky rocket jump or something like that. So I'll be curious to see not only if the lineup changes, but also how their positions change. I think maybe it could work out better for them. I guess they'll just really have to practice and see what works for them. I think if as long as they manage to work together, they can probably hold STB off, but it's going to be difficult for sure. I mean, yeah, Poto and AVC are going to be really, really good on that map. I think it's really just going to come down to if they play Aliens or if they play Ghost Killer and which one they have more success with. I know they've been playing Ghost Killer so far. Again, I'd be curious to see how, if the results stay the same on this map versus the map they just played. I know Ghost Killer is doing really well. Aliens was also doing really well in practice though. So yeah, we'll see. But I think regardless, it's hard not to give STB the edge here because I do think that they'll find a way to win. Maybe it could go to 3 rounds, but yeah, I'd say either 2-1 or 2-0 for STB.
Well, WDL can prove us all wrong. Yeah, so the second game is actually the only game between two teams that won, so BG and WW. This one's harder, I think, to predict, only because I feel like the lineups and the players on both teams complement each other very well. I would like to see, how, and I'm, he's not going to tell us, but I'd like to see how Nexus sets up, his lineup. I'm very curious to see how they end up doing that because, based on week one, I think your lineup's very interchangeable. You can play, any position. I think it's just a matter of uh, I'm going to show this just for fun. I think it's just a matter of figuring out, like what's going to work best for you, right? So, yeah, and then of course WW like did a really good job week one. I think they also have the ability to play multiple positions, but this one I don't know. This one's really hard. I think going up against like I keep thinking about WW's offense and how they have that ability to Tiger and ACC have that ability to attack and kind of confuse the defender. I don't necessarily see Nexus getting confused by that, but maybe just overwhelmed. So that's a possibility. I do think also on the other hand, Salt Mine may get overwhelmed with your offense. So if I had to throw a prediction out there and to stop myself from I think BG's gonna win 2-1.
Hell yeah.
I'm not gonna show anybody's commentary on my very random prediction.
Fucking eat that ACC. No, I'm gonna have fun with this one. This
I
is
could
what I'm
never
looking...
predict 2-0. I just
No,
can't.
yeah,
It's too
no,
mean.
I don't want to be a complete dick. I'm looking forward to this one. I think one thing's gonna be hard is like myself, my team, like ACC Tiger. We all kind of generally practice at the same time. I think we've got like fairly similar schedules. So it's gonna be really annoying practicing during the week because it's gonna be like we're all there to practice, and the only people there to practice is gonna be our opposing teams. So we're not gonna do that. But yeah, we'll see how that goes. ACC still talking trash. It's gonna be an interesting one. Like we're gonna have to really work the composition of my team, make sure we have everything down. Obviously, I'm not gonna spoil anything too much. I don't have the biggest idea myself. We're gonna sort of work through it as practice goes, but I think it's gonna be a really important one, a win on my hand to trying to carry this momentum forward. 2 wins right off the season that basically guarantees you into playoffs, right? And also, like you said, WW being the only team, 2 matching like winning teams to play each other, myself and WW. Like, I think it's gonna be a really important one for us to win, and I have full confidence in my team. Like Sharp, SKR doing fantastic. So we're gonna work on our strengths and absolutely destroy ACC clearly.
Yeah, this one's hard for me to predict because again, if we're talking about runners, I feel like both teams have really good runners. Sharp, Skull Rush are going to work really well together, but I think ACC and Tiger are also going to work really well together. I have full confidence in Nexus, but I also have confidence in Salt Mine that he'll be able to pull it off. So it's difficult to predict this one. Yeah, I don't know. I might have to give the slight edge to BG, but I really don't know. I could see it going either way, to be honest. I think a lot of it's going to come down to practice and just how well they're going to be able to work together. Assuming that it is Sharp and Skull Rush playing, they worked really well together week one. So I think they're going to play, if they do play again, I think they're going to carry that same synergy going forward. Again, that's a really deadly offensive combo, especially on map 18 where, both of them are very capable of sneaking in a lot of finesse plays, whereas Tiger and ACC are also, I feel like, pretty much just as capable of doing the same thing. So really, I could see this one going either way. To be honest, it's going to be probably the game of the week for sure.
Yeah, all shit aside, it's actually gonna be really close. Like we have very evenly matched teams here, and it's gonna be like I feel like both my runners and his runners, like it's gonna be tight. Like it sort of feeds into both of our team's strengths, right? So it's gonna be an interesting one to watch. I'm already in DMs with SKI right now. We're getting like the set like dunk strats on ACC going. It's gonna be a whole montage afterwards. You know, they're not even ready.
Well, it is definitely the game of the week. I'll say that much. I don't even know what the fuck I'm looking at in some of these chats. So
Yeah, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Just a lot of banter.
Yes. So yeah, game of the week, I think, and not to discount the last game, UAC and LKD. So this one to me in my head is a little bit easier. I like, I really like J Warrior and Legion as a combo. Like when I think of all those, like I've played with Legion like countless times. I think everyone's played with Legion, right? But the thing that I like about Legion is you can put him at he'll play any position that you tell him to play, even if he doesn't feel confident in it. And he's a really good communicator, just super smart, right? Like maybe not the most technically sound, like he's not gonna get 120 frags on you. Maybe he won't score 5 flags, but he's just one of those guys that understands the game. So a very big fan of his. J Warrior, really, really good. Amar, I mean, you don't need to say much about him. Like the guy's crazy. But I do really like the team play that is on UAC. I like XWiz and Ninja Dog, and let's say you use Chain. I mean, Chain is very similar, I think, to how I just described Legion. Like Chain back in the day, dominant player, but also really smart, and just understands the flow of a game. So if he's in, then you have that opportunity to have that sort of high level player, like brain wise. I don't know how else to say it. But even with Marine, I mean, we saw him go crazy in the last game. So yeah, next prediction. Yeah, I am gonna say UAC wins, but I'm not gonna say how many rounds. I just think UAC is gonna win.
Yeah, no, definitely fair enough. I probably once again agree with you on this one. It could be close. I'd like to see sort of a Mars team sort of find their footing here. J War. I could see J Warrior doing some really good runs here. I'm hoping we get to see Warrior sort of make an entrance into the league. I know he's been away for whatever personal reason. Him and Amar would be really good to watch, regardless of how it goes. Just watching two brothers play together is awesome. I'm super glad to see that in the league, and they could have some really good synergy going on there. And I think LKD, what they're going to be looking at doing, this is just me sort of predicting a little bit. I'd imagine they'd sort of play fairly defensively, try to hold it down, and then go for the occasional run and really bank on that, which I'd like to see work. But with UAC, I feel like maybe they've got a little more of a well-rounded sort of lineup. I'm interested to see what they actually do with their lineup and their composition in terms of positioning. This one is going to be a lot harder to defend on, so I'm interested to see sort of. I think Marine Guy can do it. Is that going to be their best combination? Could they flip Marine Guy around to a different position? Maybe bring Ninja Dog back. Obviously, I'm sure Ninja Dog's not going to leak that yet. Maybe he doesn't know, but I'm interested to see on how that works and sort of see how they put their team together on this one.
Yeah, I'm not going to comment too much. There's some things I don't really know either, but I think we have some ideas on what we're going to do. It's just going to come down to practicing and seeing how everything goes. I'm also curious to see if Warrior is going to play this week or if they're going to use the same lineup, and if they do use Warrior, how things are going to change. So, yeah, I think it'll be a good game regardless. But yeah, we're definitely going to try to get some practice in. It's going to be a little tough for our team because we're kind of for the most part on different schedules, except for really the weekend is when it kind of works out for all of us. So we might have limited time to practice with the entire team throughout the week. So that could be a challenge, but we'll see how it goes. I have confidence that we'll figure out what we're going to do and pull it off.
Yeah, should be a really good one.
Well, all right. Looking forward to all of those games, week 2. Yeah, that pretty much wraps up our recap here, our predictions for next week. We don't have any game times yet, so make sure everyone follows the schedule channel for that. Really appreciate you guys hopping on and doing this. Maybe I'll see you guys next week as well. But yeah, great first week. Appreciate everything, and I will talk to you guys later.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much, Bones, for
Sounds
doing
good.
this.
All
Yeah.
right.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
All right. Take care.
Bye.